Challenge 101. Good luck go, we miss him. Buhari go, we miss him. If Tinubu go, we miss him. Our own don't finish.
I swear!
If person wan buy data now, e go use like 15 minutes look option. That time, when I say Tinubu dey shake, now who dey shake?
Me and you!
To buy crates of egg for this era go be like careless spending. With 300, we fit buy mineral and egg roll, but now 300 no fit buy egg, talk less of rolls. To chop single sausage shawarma now, person go dey do 2 weeks of planning. Country dey spoil the go. One person dey one side dey shout, "My father is the best president."
Better shut up!
Which is Bohemian lifestyle. What does that mean? What does that mean for you?
What does it mean for me? It means being free. I realized at an early age that I think differently from many people. I don't have quite conventional thoughts. My thought pattern is not conventional. And this is something I understood at a very early age. I was always very observant, and I've never followed trends. I've never been a follower. I've always been the kind of person who did her own thing. Ever since I was in elementary school, teachers can say, "This girl, she dances to the tune of her own rhythm." I've never been a follower. I've never jumped on the bandwagon. So Bohemian life is just a continuation of what that is. I don't jump on the bandwagon. That's just who I am as a person. And now I'm just honoring it even further with the things that I do. And yeah, that's what it means.
Is there any African example of someone who lived that kind of life that you are talking about?
I love that question. There are some examples. For example, maybe they did it in their own way. One person who influenced me, Herman Chinnery Hesse, he passed away last year. What it means.
Is there any African example of someone who lived that kind of life that you are talking about?
I love that question. There are some examples. For example, maybe they did it in their own way. One person who influenced me, Herman Chinnery Hesse, he passed away last year, October last year, September. He was a Bohemian in terms of free love. His sexuality was quite open, and the way he lived his life. He had 2 houses, moving back and forth between Sierra Leone and Ghana. He liked to bring people together to have intellectual conversations, and he really impacted me in terms of he's like the marriage thing, and just we had deep talks. But there are others. There are some writers I can think of. Some writers who I know, I don't want to name them because I know them personally, and I don't know if they want to be described as Bohemians. If I can mention people who are not African but are Black, Catherine Dunham, she was a dancer, and she had a Bohemian life. She lived in the US, but then she also lived a little bit. She did some time in Senegal and in Haiti. Maya Angelou, I can call her a Bohemian to a certain aspect in terms of she just allowed herself to express herself in many different ways. There was a time she was a journalist.
the Ada, you are the first daughter of your parents. How do you reconcile that traditional role of an Ada with this this decision in terms of the kind of life you want, which is Bohemian life? Does that mean that you are not going to play that role of being the one that would put together the family in the Igbo traditional cultural setting? Yeah, that is
But
very
no,
important.
of course, and I'm incredibly involved in my family's keeping us together, helping, listening to their problems. I'm still very much that. So I don't think being Bohemian takes me away from that, because as a Bohemian, I'm not saying I want to detach from family like maybe someone from a different part of the world may do. I'm very much family oriented, absolutely. Because, and also I feel that being unmarried makes me even more family oriented, and studies have actually shown this, that people who are not married, they tend to take care of their parents. They're more involved with their family because you're not married. They tend to be like this.
Interesting. Greetings. Thank you for joining me. This one is just a quick reaction to the discussion that was had on Sunday. I found it interesting, and I guess I don't normally watch programs over again, so I didn't have much of a reason to react before. So, but today, for some reason, I don't know why, I just played the video from Sunday and listening to the conversation, and I thought, okay, there are quite a lot of things here that may need to be, a few things anyway, not a lot, that may need to be unpacked. The guest was very well spoken, and she, in terms of her ideas, English is just a language in the end, but it depends on how you use it. I think she spoke very well in terms of her ideas, and I especially like the area where she says something about context is a very, very important aspect to anything that we are doing, and which is interesting because based on that, one can say where the problem truly lies in some of, at least from my point of view, with the conversation, was that they didn't contextualize it. They used very general terms to describe a Bohemian lifestyle. And when that happens, you have to be careful because there's an element of, using Bohemian lifestyle as a Trojan horse for feminists, kind of ideas, especially the more toxic aspect of it. Obviously, like everything, context matters, because feminism is not a problem on its own, but there's always that element that people inject into it to make it become somewhat of an issue for some people, or quite a lot of people. The term Bohemian lifestyle or Bohemianism, or whichever way you want to describe it, the term is very loose. The way it's been described on the show, which you can do, but when one describes it that way and you apply context to it, especially the context of how society perceives Bohemian lifestyle, many of the people that were called Bohemians, they will not accept that they were Bohemian. And that is why context is important. But when you go with the context of strict definition of Bohemian lifestyle, that only encompasses almost everyone. Jesus Christ is a Bohemian. You can even describe what's his name, Muhammad, as a Bohemian, because he wasn't going with the convention. He was questioning everything. But would Muhammad describe himself as a Bohemian? No. So, and this is why context matters. And it's funny because she also said, she actually highlighted the term context as a very, very important aspect when describing certain things. And that is where I have a little bit of an issue. But I must say, I'm very, very proud of the way many of the Nigerians asked their questions and they came on. AY was quite impressive, the way he took, the kind of questions he asked. He tries to flesh things out a little bit. In terms of the merits of Bohemian lifestyle, because this last video I played is the one that is a little bit, you can see some of the kind of Trojan horseism, if that's even a word, Trojan horseism of feminist ideas as Bohemian at the same time. Let me just see if I can just highlight the point, and because it happens repeatedly over and over again.
Process through writing. So I wrote it down. I wrote it to them a few years ago. I think it's been about 6 years now. I wrote it very clearly. Because once something is written, you can go back and reread it. Just if they're wondering, they can always go back and read it. So it's not in the air. Define it in their own way. I'm talking about the conventional definition of marriage, which means it's an institution regulated by the government and oftentimes religious institutions. So that's the definition we're working with. We have to establish the definition. So the conventional definition, the issue is that it's based off, people get into it. It's fear.
Now you see that point, very, very disturbing too, and this is why when somebody is describing Bohemian lifestyle and conflating it with anti-marriage or basically anti-marriage sentiments, which is a kind of the toxic, personally I see it as the toxic aspect of feminism, where they use the idea that women empowerment needs to be anti-marriage somehow. Because the idea is that she interpreted the need for marriage as fear of losing the other.
Islam and Christianity.
Let's just hear it again.
Will you say that Fela was sort of lived a bohemian life?
Absolutely. I would say Fela is a bohemian. I'm surprised I didn't even mention him. Yeah, he was a bohemian.
Someone, when I put out this that you were coming, someone wanted to know what issue do you have with marriage? What is the issue with marriage? That's how he put it. So
what is the issue?
Yeah.
The issue is that it's based off fear and control. Fear of losing the person.
Instead of her to say, personally, if I was her, I would start from saying I don't have any issue with marriage, or at least I don't have any fundamental issue with marriage other than this aspect. To say she has issue with marriage, I think that one is one of the lowest points for me anyway. Because marriage as it is one of the greatest inventions a man has ever, or human beings have ever managed to put together. Marriage is not only about fear, it's also about structure. It's also about ensuring the young have an element of stability while they are growing up. Life is a very, very simple phenomenon. You come into this world, you want to survive, you want to be protected, and you ideally want to be able to procreate. For all that life is worth is this mysterious, fantastic phenomenon that we are experiencing, that we don't know what else exists out there. This is all we know. To disregard that and say an institution that was created to ensure a level of stability that in some sense enhances our ability to endure the harshness of what life throws at human beings. Life is harsh without technology. Life is harsh without organization. Life is harsh without any sense of who belongs to whom. When you have a society without regulation, the point of society is a contract between individuals within that society to say, you know what, we are going to put aside some of our instincts, natural instinct, which maybe I don't know whether she will describe it as Bohemian lifestyle. In other words, do whatever you like. We are going to set that one aside for the greater good. And that is the aspect I think that is left out of maybe her portrayal of some of all these things. The greater good in terms of, because the greater good simply means our ability to live life in a better way, in a way that we are not subject to some of the negative aspects of life, without security, with disease, with natural disasters. Our ability to endure those things, if you are fighting for us to be able to survive those things, wars and all that, that's for the greater good. That is the whole point of society. And if people put an institution together to protect that, it's very, very important. You can't say marriage is not important in the sense that there's no way of telling who belongs to whom when society is getting very, very large. If you don't have that, people just get pregnant and have children from who to who, and then you just get anarchy. Anarchy brings us back to living like, I guess we are animals, but we will be living on a lower, whatever level you want to call it, it's going to be more brutal. And we are not going to be able to sustain the number of human beings you have on earth today. Like when you're talking about, I think 7-8 billion now, you're not going to have that population. So there are consequences of some of all these things we say. And from my evaluation, because I already, in my instinct and the way I look at certain things, I already knew the idea of Bohemian lifestyle. Not that was it hippie, really. Let's face it, it's what hippies represent. It's all good, just like many things in life. It's good at certain levels. There's, because society still needs that dynamism. Society needs that questioning. Society needs that ability for people to say, you know what, to hell with you, I don't like you. And society should be able to accept that. But to say that we should get to a state whereby everybody behaves like that, if everybody in the world behaves like that, I have a feeling before very long that we are all going to be one, the population is going to decrease. The world cannot sustain itself the way it is right now. Diseases are going to increase. A lot of problems are going to increase, because the idea of bohemianism is, or I don't know what the term is when you are calling an ism. You do whatever you like, however you like, whenever you like. That is a recipe for anarchy. Collective intelligence is lost. Without collective intelligence, systems break down. And there is a reason why societies are not built on that. Anthropologists should understand this. Societies are not built on that because the societies that were like that tend to get destroyed by the ones that are not. Because they are weaker societies. They can't withstand the challenges of life itself. Like I said, I'm not against bohemianism at a certain level in terms of when it's operating, you have a certain group of people, let's say 4%, 5%. But overall, dangerous idea. You're going to have a big problem on your hand. And where maybe part of the reason why I'm reacting today, which I'm not even sure, maybe I'm just a little bit bored and stuff like that. Who knows? Part of why I'm reacting today is also because it also bled into feminism to an extent, and this idea that marriage is bad, matriarchy is everywhere, matriarchy are oppressing the women and all that stuff. It's really sad because men haven't really said much, because men are too busy in their head. They don't understand, they don't care about some of the things that is going on around them when women are saying some of all these things. When even if the objective truth is that it's not necessarily accurate. We are all in a mess to an extent. Men go through hell too. If women are going through hell, men also do. The idea is there's a reason why men have a higher mortality rate in terms of life expectancy too. All these things are not taken into account, But oh, men are oppressing women. Men are having all this fun. Men are living all these great lives. What kind of great life is that when you keep dying first all the time? What kind of great life is that when you are the one that when there's a war is happening, you are the one that they first go and kill first? What kind of great life when there is danger, you are the one that goes and dies first? You do all some of the harshest jobs. You die men die far more while at work than women do. So the most hazardous professions are done by men. So the idea that men are getting it all that, I don't know. I don't know why. This is why I like what the wife of Mandela said, that any woman that aspires to be like a man doesn't have any ambition at all. Because the man's lifestyle is just horrible. Yes, women have their own drawbacks too, in terms of when men use their power and their wealth against them, against women. Yes, that's a big drawback. And when for me, one of the areas that I totally disagree with some feminists is that they will be making it look like raising a child is a bad thing, or is somehow less than a man that is working in NASA or something like that. I don't subscribe to that idea, because if you are raising human beings are just about the most valuable things you have in anything you have in this world. I don't see why we reduce that to something that is less than material stuff. Material stuff is just like stone. Human beings are alive. So my values are in that direction. My values are towards life. Maybe that makes me anti non-life. That maybe that will become a thing. Just like all those vegetarians are anti-plant because they chose to be eating plants instead of animals. I don't know what plants have done to them, but it's all right. We all have our own perks and what we like. So that is the part I have a bit of an issue with, because she went on to say something about families, women that don't have. You see, she didn't have to put it that way. Women that are not married they participate more in families. Where did he get that from? Women that are not married participate more in families. The point is that if you have children, you're always in families. You participate a lot more in families. It's all family for you. So how can you put? I think what she meant to say, you see, context matters. What she meant to say was, in terms of individuals participating to organizing the larger aspect of, let's say, an extended family, they tend to participate more. You have this auntie that is not married, that doesn't have a child, that comes in and helps, now and again take care of their nephews and nieces and stuff like that. Yeah, you can say that, but that is part-time. They come and they go. The person raising the child is in family all the time. You don't participate more in reality in family life. To an extent, you can even describe people that live, for me, the conventional Bohemian lifestyle, which is the hippie lifestyle, the true hippie lifestyle. When we say hippie lifestyle, we're not talking about the fellas and all the rest of it. The fellas, and you can describe fella to an extent like that, but it's not based on what people understand as Bohemian lifestyle. They are kind of, if I want to put it rudely, freeloaders of society, whereby others commit and deprive themselves of some of their instincts so the larger society can function, while others decide that, nah, come here, let me smoke my weed, let me have my hair any color I want, let me dress the way I like, let me not conform. There is an element of that seems to be based on the privilege the others have provided, and they too should understand that. Because it's all good, do that. But don't come from there and start judging the ones that are making commitments. that their lifestyle is not good and all the rest of it. If there are things you want to add to make their lifestyle better, fine. You can say, oh, this idea of you working 24, 6 days a week is not good. What we discovered is that, we that like to take it easy, we found that when we work 4 days a week or get busy 4 days a week, it's actually better for you overall. You're actually going to do better. If that adds to society, people will listen to you. But this idea that your lifestyle is better than theirs, and somehow the others are constrained and it's negative, it's wrong, because you are looking at this as an individual. But if you are looking at it as a collective, you find that it's actually more intelligent than what the Bohemians are doing. There are always consequences for lifestyles. If everybody embraces the Bohemian lifestyle, guess what? The economy will go down. There'll be instability in the system. There'll be increase in mental health issues. There are so many aspects. If I start listing all the negative aspects that come from Bohemian lifestyle, if everybody chose to do that, you might even result in apocalypse within a short period of time. And this is why you have to restrict it. And I think the West, I like the way the West treats Bohemian lifestyle. Actually, they restrict it to artistic. They restrict it to artistic and it kind of the way people participate in drugs and the way people participate in sexuality. Not even sexuality, in the way they see relationships. It's not about gay or lesbianism or anything else or heterosexual. It's more about how they see relationships. Hippies are often perceived as being very free in relationships and open in relationships. They are also perceived as being quite open to drugs. Generally, they are also perceived as being unconventional in the way they dress, their hair color, their hair texture, and the way they wear, the clothes they wear. Those are all things. That's what hippies and Bohemian lifestyle tend to be associated with. And if you keep it within that context, it's contained. But when you start expanding it and saying Maya Angelou and everybody is a hippie to an extent, is very, very hard. You can accept it because the definition allows for that to be. But in the minds of people, they perceive it to be in that box. Because if they start saying everybody's like that, most of the other set of people have a very, very strict aspect to them. They adhere to certain norms, and some of them actually go on to preach some of, like, let's say, family lifestyle. They want a strong family lifestyle. I'm very unusual. You can call me a Bohemian from that point of view, but yet I ascribe to some very, very strong family fundamentals. I ascribe to strong societal or high collective intelligence among people. So what kind of Bohemian is that? Bohemians are supposed to be loose. They're supposed to be free willy. They're supposed to be all kinds of different things. They can even aspire. They might not even be for this. They are not supposed to be, like, at least based on some of the definition I've had, they're not supposed to be aspiring or advocating strong family ideas. I guess the idea is to be different, which is if you are looking at it from that point of view, it's just confusing, and that's what I find a little bit shifty about it. Bohemian seems to be a package for packaging feminism in the context of the conversation that they had. If you want to come out with feminism, come out with feminism. There's no need to cloak it under Bohemian this in life. Even if she is a Bohemian, her hairstyle indicates that she's a Bohemian. They are very, very cool. The fact is that you can't run from the fact that Bohemian people come across as quite charismatic. The type of Bohemian we are referring to, not the crazy ones that are not behaving themselves, but they tend to be quite free. They are like artists, isn't it? They are like artists, so they come across as being quite charismatic, easygoing people, nice. But that is also different from what the world actually requires. Um, for the world to be nice, there are certain things that need to be put in place for that to be able to function properly. Families are important. One of the greatest inventions of all creation is not about fear only, it's also about security. It's a very, very important. One has stability. No family, no child. Most children that are raised in an unstable environment, they are not going to go on to do very well. They're not going to go on to do very well. And if you don't have norms, rules of behavior, human beings seek vengeance. People feel when they are in a relationship with somebody, there has to be an element of um, stability there. That okay, you don't go from here to there. Societies where a woman can just have a man come in and sleep with her, and then the other one goes sleep with the other one. Generally, they don't do it so well. There's a reason why they don't do so well. It's possible. All this is possible. You can choose the kind of life you want to create. All is possible. But on the day of judgment, when I say day of judgment, I'm using a more religious kind of term. But in reality, if I want to use anthropological kind of term, in terms of how a society that believes in more bohemian aspects of life versus a society that believes in more collective, um, um, communal, and a collective solidarity kind of lifestyle, what you get is the one that is that has a more collective kind of lifestyle will often suppress the one that is more bohemian, because the one that is more bohemian is it's a lot more chaotic. It doesn't have to be like chaos, just more chaotic compared to the one that is more organized. And when people are more organized, they generally do better than the ones that are less organized, even if they are even if they are fewer in number. And the truth is that societies that are more organized tend to have more numbers too, because the fact that they are more organized, it means that they can produce more with anything they want to do. If they want more people, they can produce more. If they want more weapons, they can produce more. Societies that are not organized, they don't do so well. And that is why, in the sense, in my mind, when we describe hippies and bohemian kind, or people that subscribe to that lifestyle, they are beautiful to have, but it's not something you recommend to the entire society, because it's going to be worse off for that society, and it shouldn't necessarily be a Trojan for feminist ideas, because I don't understand how that somehow ties into the fact that marriage is because of fear, or it's okay to be single, it's okay to sleep around with different people and stuff like that. It's okay for a few, but it's not okay societally. People have experimented. History is a document of experimentation that's occurred, and the result is in. It's already happened. The results indicates that the ones that don't do those things generally do better. Just what it is. If those Gambians that used to have their wives sleep with other people were doing so well, they will be running the world right now. Guess what? The ones that marry one wife. To be fair, I have to add to the fact that the Europeans were technically monogamous because of Christianity. They went on to dominate the world, but they were very, very strict, extremely strict with marriage. They don't play around, and especially when it comes to the ability of the women to do whatever they like. The man could do whatever he likes, especially if the man is well off. But for the woman to do whatever she liked, mm-mm. And Muslims are even tighter in that from that point of view. Muslims subscribe to a man being able to marry multiple wives, but the women can't. And they also, and yet look at how well they did. The votes are in. It's already concluded. History has already happened. till today is still happening. I just thought I should react to that. Really, I don't need to go on about this. I just thought I should react to that briefly. Um, if our people want to talk about, I think I also like the work she did on she's doing for the Biafran movement. I can't believe that she's able to even go and interview all those people when Dr. Damages hasn't managed to get one bandit to come here and talk to us. So it's quite good. Some of the stuff she was able to do, it's quite impressive. She's a very, very impressive character from that point of view. She did a lot of things quite well. And but I really wish I was there because if I was around, I probably would have tried to separate her bohemian lifestyle from her feminist lifestyle. I think that's something people didn't do enough of. They needed to separate the feminist ideas from her bohemian description, because when you present feminism as bohemian, people, their defenses are lowered because they don't understand that it's a Trojan horse that is coming through. She did admit that she's feminist, and she sees getting married as a fair response, which everybody is entitled to their own opinion on that. She also sees I think she's one of those people that see Africa as a place where men dominate the ideas. I'm not so sure about that. Personally, I'm not even that sure. Because in Nigeria, like the example she gave, the man stood up for her in the bank. And you see that in Nigeria quite often. I'm not even sure I've actually been anywhere in Nigeria where we're having discussions or doing anything, and I've had a man say, "Oh, shut up, you woman, because you're a woman." I've not seen that. And it's funny because I grew up in Nigeria. What you get is what I've seen. I'm not even sure how many times I've seen it. Let's say they're having a meeting, and the meeting is amongst men. That's it. And even when that is happening, I've never seen a case where a woman walks in and says, "Hey, get out! It's not for you. It's for men." I've not seen it. Also, there are some cases where you have women go to meetings, like they form all these local meetings that they have, and they share money and stuff like that. The men are not there too. I've seen those sort of things happen. So I guess in Nigeria, the way feminism, a kind of or chauvinism shows up is when maybe you're at workplaces, because men dominate many workplaces. They kind of use that power against the women. In relationships, men are physically stronger, so they use that against the women. Even in society, there's quarrels. Men will use their power against women, and maybe not. I wouldn't even say maybe I would split it that way. Actually, maybe the law enforcement don't take it seriously because they are also men. They don't listen to the women on that aspect. The reason why I put it as maybe is because in society in Nigeria, it can flip the other way. Sometimes the men don't listen to the women. Sometimes the men listen only to the women, which is crazy. Whereby the man is guilty before even anything, because the moment the woman comes and looks at the man with some kind of eye, the man will do anything to please that woman. And that is Nigeria. Let's not pretend that is what Nigerians do. Nigerian men want to please women. As a matter of fact, while I was growing up, I don't know whether it was me or everybody knew that. Instinctively, you knew if you and a woman were the same age, socially, she's on a higher level. You can't compete with her. If you try to say something that she doesn't like, she might have a boyfriend, she might have a man that she knows somewhere, she might have a dad, she might have a brother. You would suffer for it if you mess with that woman. So it's not that simple to just put it like, oh, men are oppressing women everywhere and stuff like that. It's not. Personally, this debate hasn't been had well enough for us to truly understand. If you are describing one specific area where men are misbehaving and treating women badly, deal with that. But this idea that it's a total society oppression of women, that is only because I believe, in my mind, that we decided to redefine what value is. We decided to redefine what is actually a good life. Because now, if you redefine that raising a child is a bad thing, or not necessarily a bad thing, or less than the value you had before, then you've just devalued everything the women have been doing all this while. And then they will feel oppressed. But if it was described as the greatest thing in all existence, suddenly the point of view changes. That, oh, they are doing they are the oracles of society. They are the ones putting everything. Without them, nothing works. So then everything flips on its head. Maybe the men, maybe the men will start having their own, what do they call it, masculinism or whatever. Want to start doing what the women do. Who knows? Who knows these things? But then again, men at the end will be the one that set the agenda for things to be. So those men that decided to say women lives, their own lifestyle is the best, and the women should try to be like them. Fine. For whatever reason why they chose to do that at their time, we all know those Western people that are pushing those ideas now, they were not like that when they built their Western societies. And whenever they like, they can yank it away. The men are still in control, make no mistake, in terms of setting the agenda. That is what they are built for. That is what men are built for. Men are built to set the agenda in terms of the strategic way society perceives certain aspects of their society. They generally set the agenda. They tend to found nations. Men at the core of nations is men that chose to make it that way. They could have decided let them keep killing each other. But some men came together and said, you know what, let's do this. If it was the women that decided to form societies, do you think it will last? The men will destroy it. It took the men to enable it to happen. Because it favors them. Men are selfish like that. When they know that if we organize ourselves, we are going to get more women, they'll be like, that's better, then let's do that. I guess I've ranted enough. I didn't think it was going to even go this long. But it's all good. I think the conversation was very good, and I think many Nigerians came on and spoke very well. And I think she should be proud of herself and a lot of work she has done. She's done quite a lot of good things, and the way she spoke, I think a lot of people, the perception people had of her is quite positive, based on the this in the interview. And yeah, you have to respect people that have actually gone out there and done something. I wish I was the one that have interviewed the bandits. That would be exciting. Imagine going to interview bandits. I will start my own fight with them before the interview end. So you have to admire people for doing some of all this work. You can't put it, set it aside and say, oh yeah, they are all rubbish and all that. I just disagree with some of those key points. And it's almost like I feel like I'm some kind of I just feel like I need to challenge some of all these assertions about society, because I see it almost completely that it's all over Nigeria, it's all over many African countries, and all the damages are done in the Western society, in African American societies. I'm hoping that maybe we in Africa will be able to a kind of, shield Africa to an extent from some of the negative aspects of the perception and the way society has shaped the Africans in the West. And you can see that happening to Nigerians that travel overseas now. When they go to the West, there's a family breakdown. It's very, very often your cause. That the rate of family breakdown increases exponentially compared to when in Nigeria. Because there's something in the West that says, you, the woman, you raising family is not, you are beyond this, man. You can do a lot more. Let's do more. What they call more is actually for me less, because life is more for me. Non-life is less. They take the women from life and give them material. And funny enough, the women are happy because they told them this is what should make you happy. And there is this impression that I don't know why I'm talking about this actually, but there is this impression that our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers were unhappy. That's another thing I tend to hear women say. I think, funny enough, Chika said something similar too. That the women are whispering and saying, getting married, it was a bad idea, and having children was, jeez, man, that is toxic statement. I don't even remember that anymore. That is actually a toxic thing to say. And if any woman says that, her brain has gone upside down. Maybe that's a bit too harsh. Maybe that's a bit too harsh. But by saying such a thing, you are describing or advocating an idea that leads to even your very existence not being not happening. Because if every person was thinking like that before you, you wouldn't exist. Not likely. There are very few things in this life, really, really few, that are fundamental to why we are here. Outside politics, bohemianism, and all that stuff. You come, you have to eat, you have to shelter, you have to reproduce. And to reproduce, for these things to happen effectively, they are just basically three. For these things to happen, they are saying, for these things to happen more effectively, because all these things, all animals do them. All animals do them. These three: eat, shelter, reproduce. You can add security there, but all the security is an aspect that protects all those these activities from taking place. And reproduction, it turns out that reproduction, the purpose of reproduction is to be able to travel through time. In other words, not die out. If every plant died out the first time they existed, you will never know roses. You will never know daffodils. You may never know beauty. It's all going to be empty. And you will never know human beings. For all their flaws, they come with a lot of good too. So I find such talk quite. There are a few things I call toxic. That's one of them. Seeing the creation of life as negative. That is toxic talk. And that kind of talk, I completely disagree that our grandmothers, great grandmothers taught like that. They never did. The women that think like this are the ones that have been brainwashed into thinking this way, that the idea is this is how it's supposed to be. Or they have a warped sense of reality. For whatever reason, sometimes you can be forgiven. The truth is, there isn't that much to life. And if you go after one of these three, I have an issue with you. You can pretend, cloak it, however way you want to cloak it, but try to filter this three out. Anybody that is against them, you have to question what their reasoning. I'll leave it at that anyway. You know, all the two people that are watching right now. Yeah, I just thought I should put this on the record that I think it's also for me so that I can remember these things, because also you're going to have conversations later on and people will say some of all these things and you don't, so that I can remember how to approach it. Because sometimes if I had come on the panel, probably I would have come across quite negative. But now that I've had time to talk about it, think about it, and I'll probably, if I was having a conversation with her, I'll be a bit more circumspect and a little bit more polite about it. But if I had come on the panel, I'll be like, come on, man, don't go about telling people that having a child is negative and conspiring with other women. You know, that's the kind of stuff that no wonder they started accusing people of witchcraft before. This is kind of stuff that make people accuse other people of witchcraft. When you start saying creating life is evil, that's just wrong. You don't do that. Having children, ooh, I regret having children because why? You can have a personal opinion of that on that. To be fair, people have bad experiences with raising children or having children. You can have personal opinion, but societally it's very wrong, because if everything did that, like I said, you wouldn't even know roses. These things go deeper than us. It goes deeper than human beings. So thank you for joining me, the people that are viewing this and indulging my rant on this. And make no mistake, I'm not here trying to critique all she said. She said a lot of great things. I like what she said about the contextualizing discussions, which for some reason the context was taken out of many of the conversations that was had later on. I like the work she's doing for the Biafra. I think I tried to find the Biafra Memorial website, but I couldn't find it. Maybe I didn't search it very well, or my typing was wrong. Interviewing bandits, bringing people together culturally. And the dress sense is quite cool too. You know, hippies always have that funny dress sense with all the colors and flamboyance. It's all good, and you can not admire that. It's a beautiful thing. It's almost like, it reminds me of Erykah Badu, isn't it? It reminds me of Erykah Badu. So yeah, you can't fail to admire that. So yeah, thank you for doing all that good work. But if you want to talk about feminism, personally, I will advise, try to separate it a little bit from Bohemian lifestyle. And I will also personally recommend, when talking about those type of lifestyle, we want to restrict it to a certain culture, not every, because if you splash it at everybody, you want to make very clear that this is a loose definition of the Bohemian lifestyle. But the strict understanding people have of it is quite limited. It's not that broad. They are not going to think of Diogenes. Diogenes that was living in a jar in Greece. It's a philosopher that was living in a jar, defying society as Bohemian. And as a matter of fact, you can even, by that standard, you can even say almost all prophets are Bohemian too. You know, so you can't do that. If you want to do that, warn people that this is a loose definition, because many of the people that you are going to classify as Bohemian, and they will never describe themselves as Bohemian, because they too, when they look at people that they call Bohemian, they see them as hippies. So they will not describe themselves as Bohemian. And it's a very, very interesting concept, actually. The idea that a word can mean one thing, in reality, it can encompass a lot of things, but the way people perceive that word is actually restricted to a certain aspect. I don't have any other example. I wish I have thought about it a bit more. That is the concept I'm trying to address here. People understand Bohemian or hippie lifestyle as different from this broad definition that was given on the show. And if you want to give that broad definition, you may want to warn people that that is what is happening. It's a broad definition, and it's not what people should associate, or what people associate with Bohemianism. And even the people themselves that you are ascribing to being Bohemian, they too will not call themselves Bohemian at all. As a matter of fact, they might even abhor what people perceive as Bohemian now. They might abhor it, like, you calling me as part of that group, are you crazy? But in a way, it's true. The definition also takes them in. But they won't like it. They won't like it, you know. And if you look at, let me see if you search what, let's say, people don't get offended now, prostitution. If you look at some definition of prostitution, you might actually start losing. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go there. I need to change direction on that one. What other word is there? I'm trying to find a word that is linked to a specific lifestyle or people or things, but when you loosen the actual definition, it encompasses a lot of people, and most of the people will completely lose it if you call them that. You see what I mean? So, but I'm sorry, I don't have a good example, but I'm going to use this one that I keep to. But I'm really sorry, people that get offended by this. Like prostitution now. If they say prostitution is women or men offering services for sex and stuff like that, but then if you loosen the definition a little bit and say, but isn't that what most relationships are about? So it mean, are you trying to say those guys, women that go out with men for money are just prostitutes? I say, but that's not it. But then if you loosen the definition, that's what it starts becoming. And that is the example that's kind of correlation I'm trying to give here. That people understand Bohemian lifestyle or a hippie lifestyle to be a certain lifestyle. If you loosen it up, a lot of the people that will get caught by it will not like it. They will frown at it and say, "What are you saying? I don't like that lifestyle for one, and I don't subscribe to being called. I don't like being called that at all." But then again, this is a phenomenon of life, so it's not new. So it's not the first time somebody has done that. So I'm not gonna. It's not a big deal in reality. I just thought I should flag that one up. All right then. I will close out for now, and till next time, we are gonna see each other again, and hope you all have a good Tuesday. This is an unusual live stream to be streaming on a Tuesday. Talking about these issues, and I must say Dr. Damages did himself proud. I think he's getting, I don't know, man, I don't know what's going on. He's asking some very, very good questions. I want to say he really thinks about these things. He seems to be on his game. His questioning is very, very good. He's drawing out a lot of things. That Ada one was just brilliant. The Ada aspect that he brought up was just brilliant, because he brought out the idea from her. As a matter of fact, he kind of brought it out that when she said the women without children, but that shouldn't have to do with children. The women without children participate in the family life. So being Bohemian, she's tying it to not having children. Now you see the trend there. Yeah, so that is not those are the aspects that I find a little bit, because the question was about your Bohemian lifestyle. Does it affect you with your family? Why tie it to not having children? Because if you don't have children, you participate more with your family. This thing, lifestyle. I guess you were talking about it from the point of view of managing the family affairs and stuff like that. If you ask me, I would say the ones that have children participate far more in family lifestyle, because family lifestyle is not only the macro aspect of the family engagement, it's also the micro one. They deal with it all the time. And so it is what it is, and they tend to attend all the family gatherings because the children have to meet for Christmas and all the other stuff. And so in reality, I don't know why the people say they participate more. I don't know. Depending on what context, somebody that doesn't have children will participate more with family. You can say they leave because they don't have their own family. They go and get involved more with other people's family. But to say they participate more, I don't know. I don't know about that. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to close out now. Till next time, bye.
Good luck go, we miss him. Buhari go, we miss him. If Tinubu go, we miss him. Our own don't finish.
I swear.
If person wan buy data now, e go use like 15 minutes look option. That time, when I say Tinubu dey shake, now who dey shake?
Me and you.
To buy crates of egg for this era go be like careless spending. With 300, we fit buy mineral and egg roll, but now 300 no fit buy egg, talk less of roll. To chop single sausage shawarma now, person go dey do 2 weeks of planning. Country dey spoil dey go. One person dey one side dey shout, "My father is the best president."
Better shut up.
Garri wey be poor man food don turn gold.
No be lie.
President Tinubu, abeg, do something before something